What if I told you that motivation is lying to you, that the very thing you've been waiting for, that spark, that rush of inspiration, is the reason you're stuck? Because here's the truth, motivation might get you started, but it will never get you to the finish line. Only one thing will, and it's not exciting, it's not glamorous, but it's the most powerful force for success on the planet. That force is discipline. Motivation is one of the most misunderstood forces in personal growth and achievement. People talk about it as if it's the ultimate fuel for success, but in reality, it's unreliable. Motivation is driven by emotion, by how you feel in the moment, and that means it can rise quickly but fade just as fast. Think about the times when you watched an inspiring video, read a powerful quote, or listened to a speech that made you want to change everything in your life. In that moment, you felt unstoppable. You told yourself you were ready to take action, to work harder, to chase your dreams. But the next day, or maybe even just a few hours later, that energy was gone. The excitement faded, and you found yourself slipping back into old habits. That's because motivation is temporary. It's like the weather. It shifts with circumstances, moods, and external triggers. People often make the mistake of waiting until they feel motivated to act. They say they'll start the workout tomorrow when they're in the mood, or they'll work on their goals once they feel that burst of inspiration again. But if you rely only on motivation, you'll always find yourself in a cycle of starting strong and then losing steam. It creates a roller coaster of energy and commitment. One day you feel unstoppable, the next day you're struggling just to get moving. Success cannot be built on something so unstable. Motivation is also influenced heavily by external conditions. When things are going well, when you're seeing results, when the people around you are cheering you on, you feel motivated. But what happens when progress slows down, when setbacks come, or when no one notices the effort you're putting in? Motivation disappears. That's why so many people quit halfway through their journey. They think they've lost their passion or that something is wrong with them, but the truth is simple. They were relying on a feeling that was never meant to last. If you look at the people who achieve greatness, you'll notice something important. They don't depend on being motivated every day. They understand that there will be mornings when they don't want to get up early, evenings when they don't want to train, and countless moments when they would rather give in to comfort. They know motivation won't always be there to push them forward. They expect it to fade, and they don't allow that to stop them. They've learned to push forward without waiting for inspiration, because they know that feelings are inconsistent, but actions can be consistent. That's why it's dangerous to worship motivation as the key to success. It might be the spark that ignites the fire, but it cannot keep the fire burning on its own. Relying on motivation alone is like relying on luck to build a future. It feels good, it feels exciting, but it's never enough to carry you through the days, weeks, and years of effort it takes to achieve something meaningful. Discipline is the steady force that drives progress when everything else fades away. It is not about how inspired or excited you feel in a given moment, but about the commitment you make to yourself and the promises you keep long after the initial burst of motivation has disappeared. Discipline is choosing to act because you said you would, not because you feel like it. It's the daily decision to rise above excuses, to keep showing up, and to push forward regardless of your mood or circumstances. Where motivation is temporary and fleeting, discipline is durable and lasting, a structure you can lean on when nothing else seems to work. When you live with discipline, you don't wait for the right mood to strike before taking action. You build systems and habits that guide your behavior automatically. Waking up early, training your body, focusing on your work, learning a new skill, these aren't things you leave to chance. They become part of your routine because you have trained yourself to follow through no matter what. This removes the constant inner conflict of deciding whether to act or not, because the decision has already been made. There's freedom in that. You don't waste energy debating with yourself. You simply do what needs to be done. The power of discipline lies in its consistency. Small actions repeated daily may not seem like much in the moment, but over time they create extraordinary results. Writing a single page each day doesn't look impressive, but a year later you've written an entire book. Running a few miles each week may not feel transformative, but months later you have stamina and strength that you never thought possible. Setting aside a small amount of money regularly might not seem meaningful, but over years it becomes financial security and freedom. Discipline compounds. It turns the small and ordinary into the massive and extraordinary simply by never stopping. Another strength of discipline is that it builds resilience. Life is unpredictable. Setbacks will come, and obstacles will test your resolve. Motivation often vanishes in those moments because challenges make things harder and less exciting. But discipline doesn't ask whether the road is smooth or rough. It demands that you keep going anyway. It conditions you to withstand discomfort, to endure the grind, and to persist when others give up. The longer you practice discipline, the stronger your tolerance for adversity becomes, and this resilience becomes a superpower that separates achievers from quitters. Discipline also shapes your identity. Each time you act with discipline, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who follows through, someone who does the work, someone who honors commitments. Over time, this self-image becomes unshakable. It's no longer about forcing yourself to act. It becomes natural because it's who you are. And when discipline becomes part of your identity, success is no longer about chance or inspiration. It's inevitable because you've built the habits and the mindset that guarantee progress. Regardless of circumstances, motivation and discipline are often seen as the same, but they serve very different roles in the journey to success. Motivation is the spark that ignites action. It's the rush of excitement you feel when you first set a goal, when you imagine the possibilities, when you picture the life you want to create. That burst of energy is valuable because it gets you moving. It convinces you to take that first step. Without it, many people would never even begin. Motivation is the reason you sign up for the gym, the reason you buy the book, the reason you dream about starting a business. It provides the emotional fuel to start something new, but it cannot carry you all the way to the finish line. This is where discipline steps in. Discipline is what sustains progress long after the excitement has faded. When the novelty wears off, when the grind becomes boring, and when the results aren't showing up as quickly as you hoped, discipline is the voice that tells you to keep going. It's what ensures you go to the gym even on the days you don't want to. It's what helps you finish reading the book instead of letting it collect dust on a shelf. It's what keeps you building your business when sales are slow and doubt is creeping in. Discipline is not about how you feel in the moment. It's about the commitment you made to yourself and the consistency you choose to uphold. Motivation may be emotional, but discipline is structural. It creates habits, and those habits create momentum. Once something becomes a habit through discipline, you no longer need to wait for inspiration to act. You act automatically. The student who disciplines themselves to study daily no longer waits for the mood to strike. The athlete who disciplines themselves to train consistently doesn't need to feel like practicing. They do it because it's a part of who they are. The entrepreneur who disciplines themselves to work through long nights doesn't rely on passion every single day. They've built routines that keep the business moving forward no matter what. Motivation is also fragile. It can be shaken by failure, rejection, or delay. When things don't go as planned, motivation can vanish quickly because it's tied to feelings of progress and excitement. But discipline is resilient. Discipline doesn't care if you feel like you're failing, if you're tired, or if the road is rough. It demands action regardless of circumstances, and that's why it carries you further. Progress in anything meaningful is never linear, and discipline ensures you continue through the ups and downs without quitting. The combination of the two is powerful. Motivation gets you started, and discipline keeps you going. But if you had to choose, discipline is always stronger because it guarantees consistency. Even small actions, repeated consistently over time, accumulate into massive results. Motivation might open the door, but discipline is what walks you through it day after day until the goal becomes reality. Examples reveal the difference between motivation and discipline in the most practical way. Motivation might inspire someone to get up early one morning and go to the gym, but without discipline, that person will likely stop after a few days when soreness sets in or when life gets busy. Discipline, on the other hand, is what makes the gym a part of the daily or weekly routine no matter what, and over months or years, that consistency sculpts the body, improves health, and builds strength that motivation alone could never sustain. The same principle applies to learning. Picking up a book in a burst of inspiration feels good, and it might even provide a momentary sense of accomplishment. But discipline is what makes you write every day, turning page after page and eventually finishing the book. The knowledge gained comes not from the single act of starting, but from the repeated choice to continue when the excitement of beginning has worn off. In business, the contrast becomes even clearer. Motivation might inspire someone to start a company, fueled by visions of success, freedom, and wealth. That initial push is powerful, but soon the challenges appear. Customers don't arrive as quickly as expected, money runs low, and doubt begins to whisper that maybe the dream isn't worth it. This is the point where motivation often disappears, leaving only those who have cultivated discipline to keep moving forward. Discipline is what drives the entrepreneur to keep making calls, refining products, and showing up day after day when there is no immediate reward. Over time, it is that steady persistence that builds momentum, creates breakthroughs, and eventually turns the vision into reality. The same applies to creativity. Many people feel motivated to start painting, writing, or making music after being inspired by someone else's work. They feel a surge of passion and pour it into their first attempt, but creativity thrives on discipline, not occasional bursts of inspiration. The writer who commits to writing a page every day, even when the words don't flow easily, ends up with a completed manuscript. The painter who shows up to the canvas consistently, even on uninspired days, develops mastery of the craft. The musician who practices daily, not just when they feel like it, builds the skill that makes true artistry possible. Discipline transforms creativity from a fleeting hobby into a lifelong craft. Even in everyday life, discipline outshines motivation. Motivation might push someone to clean the house in one big effort, but discipline is what ensures the home stays clean through regular upkeep. Motivation might encourage a person to save money after hearing a financial success story, but discipline is what ensures consistent deposits into savings or investments, leading to real financial stability. Each example shows the same pattern. Motivation is the spark, but discipline is the engine. Motivation creates the beginning, but discipline ensures there is a continuation. It's discipline that carries a person from the starting line all the way through the long road to achievement. Successful people are not successful because they wake up every day feeling motivated or inspired to take action. They are successful because they have built a framework of discipline, rituals, and systems that guide their behavior regardless of how they feel in the moment. Motivation is inconsistent, but systems are reliable. The athlete who trains at the highest level is not relying on a sudden burst of energy each morning. They have a training schedule, a structured plan, and the discipline to stick to it whether they feel like it or not. The author who finishes a book doesn't wait for the perfect moment of inspiration to write. They set aside time each day, sit down, and put in the work. The business leader who builds a company that lasts doesn't just chase excitement when it's new and fun. They create systems, hire teams, and develop strategies that keep things moving forward even when challenges arise. Discipline gives structure to success. It removes the need to negotiate with yourself about whether to act or not. Successful people do not ask themselves if they are in the mood to work, train, or learn. They simply follow the structure they've committed to. That predictability is what allows them to produce results consistently. Where most people stop when the excitement fades, disciplined individuals keep going because their behavior isn't dependent on fluctuating feelings. This is what allows them to outlast others who may have started with more energy or enthusiasm. Another critical aspect of discipline is that it creates momentum. Once a disciplined habit is established, it begins to carry itself forward. At first, it takes willpower to stick to a new routine, but over time the routine becomes second nature. The successful understand this process, and they commit to it even when it feels uncomfortable in the beginning. They know that by holding on long enough, the habit will become automatic and no longer require constant mental effort. In this way, discipline gradually transforms hard work into an effortless rhythm that compounds results over years. Rituals also play a vital role in discipline. Successful people build morning routines, evening reflections, and daily practices that set the tone for everything else they do. A morning workout, journaling session, or quiet planning ritual may not seem like much on its own, but done consistently, it shapes the entire day. These rituals act as anchors that ground them, ensuring that no matter how unpredictable life becomes, there are constants they can rely on to keep them focused and productive. By building systems and rituals, successful people reduce their reliance on sheer willpower. Willpower is finite. It runs out when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. Systems, however, continue to operate regardless of energy levels. Discipline ensures that the work gets done whether or not motivation is present. This consistency, applied day after day, is what separates those who dream about success from those who live it. The real test of character and commitment comes when the initial excitement has worn off and the work in front of you feels heavy, repetitive, or even invisible to others. It's easy to act when you're motivated, when the results are new and exciting, when people are watching and cheering you on. But the measure of discipline is whether you can keep going when none of those factors are present. Can you push yourself to do the workout when your body is tired and your mind is telling you to rest? Can you stick to your study plan when no one is grading your effort in the moment? Can you continue building your dream even when the applause has stopped and no one else seems to care? These are the moments that reveal whether you are truly committed or only interested. When the excitement is gone, most people stop. They think the lack of motivation means they are no longer passionate or that the goal isn't meant for them. But those who achieve greatness understand that emotions are fleeting, and they refuse to let temporary feelings dictate long-term decisions. They show up even when it's boring, even when it's frustrating, and even when it feels like no progress is being made. This ability to follow through without external validation is what separates people who finish what they start from those who constantly restart. There is a unique strength that comes from acting without anyone watching. When you perform for recognition, Your effort depends on whether recognition is present. But when you discipline yourself to act in silence, you cultivate integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing because it's aligned with your standards, not because others are applauding you. Every time you choose to uphold your commitments without an audience, you build inner strength that can't be shaken by circumstances. That kind of discipline becomes a powerful advantage because it means you are not dependent on anyone else's approval to keep going. The true test also comes in moments of resistance. When you're tired, when distractions are calling your name, when everything in you wants to stop, that is the exact moment discipline proves its value. The ability to say, "I will do it anyway," is one of the most powerful skills you can ever develop. Each time you push through when you don't feel like it, you train yourself to rise above emotion and act on decision. Over time, that repetition becomes a habit, and that habit becomes part of your identity. You no longer question whether or not you'll follow through, because it's simply who you are. Success is not about what you do occasionally when conditions are ideal. It's about what you do consistently, especially when conditions are hard, boring, or thankless. The difference between average and extraordinary lies in the discipline to continue when most people quit, to follow through when there's no excitement, and to keep building when no one is clapping. Discipline is the great divider, the factor that separates those who only dream from those who actually make their dreams real. Dreamers often get caught up in the excitement of possibility. They imagine the life they want, the body they desire, the success they crave, and for a moment they feel powerful because their vision is so vivid. But without discipline, those dreams remain in the mind, never materializing into the world. Dreamers wait for the right time, the right feeling, or the right opportunity. Doers create their own opportunities because discipline forces them to take action even when circumstances aren't perfect. They don't wait for the stars to align. They move forward step by step, day by day, building something out of nothing simply by refusing to stop. The difference between average and extraordinary also lies in this same principle. Average people allow their emotions to dictate their actions. If they feel motivated, they work hard. If they don't, they relax. They are inconsistent, and inconsistency keeps them stuck at a level that feels safe but never truly fulfilling. Extraordinary people, on the other hand, rely on discipline, not emotions. They set standards for themselves that they refuse to compromise on. Whether they feel tired, uninspired, or overwhelmed, they continue to do what needs to be done. That steady commitment is what allows them to rise above mediocrity and achieve outcomes that look impossible to everyone else. Discipline turns ordinary individuals into exceptional performers because it teaches them resilience. Anyone can show up when things are easy, but the extraordinary are defined by their ability to show up when things are hard. A disciplined person may face the same struggles and setbacks as everyone else, but their response is different. Instead of quitting, they adjust, they learn, and they keep going. Each act of persistence strengthens their capacity to handle more, to grow faster, and to achieve greater results. Over time, the accumulation of these disciplined choices is what sets them apart from the rest of the crowd. Another reason discipline separates dreamers from doers is because it builds credibility, both with others and with yourself. When you lack discipline, you make promises you don't keep. You say you'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. Over time, this weakens your self-trust and convinces you that you're not capable of more, but when you live with discipline, you honor your commitments. You prove to yourself again and again that you can be counted on to follow through. This inner confidence becomes a foundation for achieving bigger and bigger goals. Others begin to trust you as well because they see that your actions match your words. That reputation is invaluable, and it opens doors that dreamers never get to walk through. Discipline is the bridge that takes people from intention to execution, from average results to extraordinary outcomes. It is the invisible force that keeps doers moving long after the dreamers have stopped, the quality that transforms ambition into achievement and separates those who wish from those who win many. People spend their entire lives waiting to feel ready before they take action, but the reality is that readiness is an illusion. The perfect moment never arrives because there will always be uncertainty, discomfort, and a part of you that hesitates. Waiting for the right time often becomes the very reason why people never start at all. They convince themselves they'll begin tomorrow, or when conditions improve, or when they finally feel confident. But those tomorrows stretch into weeks, months, and even years of delay. The truth is that no one ever feels fully ready to chase a big goal, because big goals always come with fear, risk, and sacrifice. Discipline is what allows you to move forward despite not feeling ready. It tells you that action must come first, and that clarity and confidence are built along the way, not before. The danger in waiting to feel ready is that it creates a cycle of hesitation. You think about your goals, you imagine what success would look like. You feel a spark of inspiration, but then doubt creeps in and convinces you that you need more preparation, more resources, or more courage before you begin. This cycle repeats over and over, keeping you stuck in the same place. Successful people break that cycle by choosing action over waiting. They understand that progress does not come from overthinking, but from stepping into the unknown and trusting that they will figure things out as they go. Discipline forces you to take that step even when your emotions are telling you to wait. Another important truth is that readiness is not something you gain by waiting. It is something you earn by doing. Think of any skill you've ever learned. You weren't ready the first time you tried it, whether it was riding a bike, speaking in front of others, or learning a new subject. You built readiness by failing, adjusting, and trying again. Discipline is what ensures you keep showing up through that uncomfortable process. Instead of waiting to feel like an expert, you act as a beginner, and through repetition and consistency, you eventually become skilled. That is how readiness is truly created, not through waiting, but through engaging with the challenge itself. Discipline also eliminates excuses. The mind is clever at creating reasons why now isn't the right time. You're too tired, too busy, too inexperienced, or too uncertain. If you listen to those excuses, you'll never begin. Discipline shuts down the debate. It doesn't ask if you're ready, if you're confident, or if you're in the mood. It simply requires that you do what you said you would do. Over time, this approach creates a sense of inner power because you prove to yourself again and again that you don't need to feel ready in order to take meaningful steps forward. The habit of waiting for readiness keeps people average, while the habit of acting through discipline moves people forward. Every time you act without waiting to feel ready, you gain experience, wisdom, and momentum. The people who achieve greatness are not the ones who waited for the perfect moment. They are the ones who created the perfect moment by starting before they felt prepared, making discipline your standard is one of the most powerful shifts you can create in your life because it transforms success from something occasional into something inevitable. When discipline becomes the baseline, you no longer depend on moods, emotions, or external circumstances to dictate whether or not you will take action. You operate from a place of consistency, not convenience. This means you don't wait until you feel like working, you don't delay until conditions are ideal, and you don't let temporary discomfort decide the quality of your effort. Instead, you commit to doing the work simply because it's part of who you are. That shift from relying on feelings to relying on standards is the difference between living reactively and living intentionally. When you make discipline your standard, your entire identity begins to change. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who follows through. Every time you act with discipline, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable, capable, and committed. This self-image becomes stronger over time, and soon your brain begins to expect consistency from you. At that point, acting with discipline is no longer a battle against procrastination or laziness. It's a natural expression of your identity. You show up not because you force yourself to, but because it's who you've trained yourself to be. That is how greatness is built, not through a single act of motivation, but through countless small choices repeated with discipline until they define you. Discipline, as a standard, also protects you from the ups and downs of life. Everyone experiences setbacks, distractions, and challenges that can derail progress. If your actions are based on motivation, those obstacles will often stop you because the emotional high you were riding disappears in the face of difficulty. But when discipline is your foundation, you continue moving forward regardless. You may slow down, you may adjust your path, but you never stop. That resilience is what allows you to keep building momentum even in the face of adversity, while others give up and start over again and again. Another advantage of discipline is the way it compounds over time. A single disciplined choice may not seem significant in the moment, but repeated consistently, those choices stack into massive results. A disciplined diet leads to long-term health, a disciplined workout routine leads to strength and stamina, a disciplined financial habit leads to wealth, and a disciplined study schedule leads to mastery of knowledge. None of these outcomes happen overnight, but because discipline is your standard, you remain consistent long enough to experience the transformation. Where others quit before the results arrive, you persist until the breakthrough comes. Making discipline your standard also eliminates the constant negotiation with yourself. You don't waste mental energy debating whether or not you should do the work because the decision has already been made. You don't ask yourself if you feel like it, you simply act. This frees your mind to focus on execution rather than hesitation, and that clarity gives you an enormous advantage. Over time, this approach creates an unstoppable momentum because every day you act with consistency, you move closer to your goals without interruption or delay. Discipline always takes you further than motivation because it is built on action rather than emotion. Motivation feels exciting in the moment, but it fades the second life gets difficult, the second things don't go as planned, or the second comfort becomes more appealing than effort. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't require you to feel good in order to act. It requires commitment, consistency, and the willingness to honor your word, even when every part of you would rather quit. That is why discipline is the true engine of progress. It doesn't rely on chance. It doesn't depend on how you feel when you wake up in the morning, and it doesn't vanish when the excitement disappears. It is steady, reliable, and repeatable, and because of that it creates long-term results that motivation alone could never deliver. Think about the difference in real life terms. Motivation might get you to start eating healthier after watching a documentary or listening to a speech, but discipline is what keeps you saying no to junk food when no one is watching and temptation is high. Motivation might inspire you to start a side hustle, but discipline is what keeps you working late at night or early in the morning when energy is low. Motivation might push you to open your notebook and start studying for an exam, but discipline is what ensures you review your notes every single day until mastery is achieved. In every example, motivation provides the spark, but discipline is what sustains the fire. Another reason discipline will always take you further is because it creates habits, and habits remove resistance. When you rely on motivation, you constantly ask yourself whether or not you should act, and that constant negotiation drains energy. With discipline, action becomes automatic. You go to the gym because that's just what you do. You save money because it's already built into your routine. You show up to work on your dream every day because you've trained yourself to follow through regardless of mood. This automatic nature of discipline means you no longer depend on fleeting inspiration. You have built a lifestyle that aligns with your goals, and that lifestyle carries you forward even on difficult days. Discipline also compounds in ways motivation never can. The small daily actions you take build momentum, and momentum turns into transformation. A few disciplined steps may not look like much in the moment, but they stack up into something massive over time. The person who relies only on motivation starts and stops, making progress and then losing it, living in a constant cycle of restarts. The person who relies on discipline doesn't stop, and because of that, their progress accelerates year after year. Discipline creates consistency, and consistency creates mastery. Motivation is temporary, discipline is permanent. Motivation is fragile, discipline is resilient. Motivation is a feeling, discipline is a decision. When you learn to live by discipline, you give yourself the power to achieve anything because you no longer depend on the unreliable highs of inspiration. You have built a standard that ensures progress no matter what